Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 38 volumes in paperback and audiobook, including the latest series, the regional series, 7 volumes dividing up all of North America. And I encourage you to go out and get a couple of copies. Really cool, some great encounters inside of those books and on the audiobooks. And now, may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. How about you?
Very good, bro. Beautiful day here today. I know you're out at the coast now, and it's shaping up, man. It's shaping up.
Spring is definitely in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Super exciting.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, man. You know, we're rounding that corner now where things are just going to get consistently better for outside activities, you know?
And it's when the Bigfoot are chasing each other around.
Oh!
And the dog man lurking in the background. And then, of course, the black-eyed children are on spring break. Can I borrow your telephone?
Hey, listen, you know, on a side note, Kev, what do you make of that? It's slipping me now. What's that other rocket company that's taking people up like into the stratosphere or wherever they're going?
It's Richard Branson's company.
Yeah, but what's in it? What does he call it again? I just can't think of it. Anyways, what do you make of that? Taking a ride up, you get weightless for a few minutes, and then you just come tumbling back down to earth.
I think it's pretty crazy, but you know, if you got $250,000 to drop on a amusement park ride, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think people discount just how dangerous that is.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's like not to compare the level of danger, but look at those poor souls that went down to see the Titanic on that submarine a couple of years ago.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're going down and then you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
And I mean, it's just, there's so much risk in that one, and there is risk too. Oh, yeah, so his is called, I should have known it, Virgin Galactic.
There you go.
Virgin Galactic. Virgin Airlines, Virgin Records.
Right. Virgin Galactic. And I thought to myself, you know, and I got to thinking about, you remember that space shuttle flight where that school teacher, I think from New Hampshire or something, went up, you know, just trying to experience it, to share the experience with the kids at school and stuff, and she never made it back.
You know, it's funny because, you know, you don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know what you're going to talk about most of the time. And tonight, I'm not going to talk about that. But what got me thinking about it was I was traveling this week, as you know, Bill. I was out in Denver. And on the flight back, I downloaded it from Netflix, the documentary of the Apollo 13 spaceflight. Not the movie. This is new. It's a documentary. And I enjoyed the movie years ago when it came out, but the documentary is 10 times better than the movie. And you really are struck by the danger that these first astronauts went through.
Yeah.
You know, and how it didn't really come out in the movie, or I wasn't paying attention or whatever as much as I did in the documentary. But, you know, when Apollo 13 went up, I think it was our third trip to the moon, maybe fourth trip to the moon. And, they started having problems with this launch about 30 minutes into the flight. And the problems got worse and worse. And when everything went to heck in a handbasket, they were still, 100,000 miles away from the moon.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had to go all the way to the moon and then, turn around the moon using the gravitational pull of the moon and then have, a little bit of a rocket blast and head back towards Earth. I mean, just, crazy. And it turns out, they said it at the end of this documentary, that they still hold the longest distance manned flight from Earth, the crew of Apollo 13, because they went so far around the back of the moon before they came back.
Right, because like you said, their only option was to use the gravitational pull of the moon to give them what they needed.
To slingshot them back.
Yeah, just incredible. But remember, Kev, not that you don't know, all of these guys and gals at times are in the test pilot group.
Yeah, back then especially. They're all test pilots,
you look
super
at Chuck,
brave. But,
remember Chuck Yeager?
Oh, yeah, one of the greatest.
Dropped in the X-15 from the wing of that plane and just bolting into the freaking sky. I mean, these people, and I don't know what the statistics are of test pilots that have died, but I am sure we don't hear about it. It doesn't really make news, but I'm sure a lot of candidates, just don't.
Yeah, I mean, they try to look out for them, but by design, they're pushing the envelope. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember, Bill, when I used to attend bar when I was a youngster, and I used to work at that bar across the street from Calverton, which was, folks, that's one of the big places where the company that used to be known as Grumman Aerospace built naval aircraft. And they had a test airport there, too. So they'd build planes there, and they would fly them there. And the bar I worked in was across the street from the gate of that plant. So as I started to get to know the different people there, the naval test pilots, there were about a dozen of them, they would come in and have drinks at the end of the day on a Friday night.
Uh-huh.
And one of the guys came in, this guy's name was Pepper. I won't say his last name, but his call sign was Pepper.
Right.
And I remember he came in, and they were super nice guys. And Bill, by the way, they all drove the super cool muscle cars, like GTOs and Corvettes and stuff like that. Back in the 80s.
Yep.
And this guy Pepper comes in, and he's shaking up. And I'm like, hey, Pepper, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I need like a double martini or whatever he was drinking. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I got that. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but I was flying the F-14 Tomcat today, and the canopy came off when I was doing Mach 2.5.
Wow. Oh, my God.
So we're talking what the heck is that like? He's like, Kev, honestly, it took me 30 seconds to figure out if I was still in the plane or not.
Wow. So Mach 2.5 is about 2K, right?
Yeah, probably about 2,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, a little light of that. Yeah. That's fast, man. You're boogieing.
Yeah, but the canopy just came off. He didn't eject it or anything. It just came loose and came right off, in a blink.
Wow.
And he's like, I didn't know if I still had the plane around me or not,
Yeah, the shock.
And the buffeting and that. Could you imagine? I mean, we can't imagine. But anyway, what I was talking about with the Apollo 13 documentary, which I was too young to remember, but they were saying one of the really good things that came out of it, of course, they all survived, right? Spoiler alert. Mm-hmm. But was that it brought the whole world together. The whole world was watching the news, whether you were in Hong Kong or Tokyo or wherever, everybody stopped doing whatever they were doing. I think it was on a Thursday afternoon when they were scheduled to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah, everybody was really riveted by this life and death.
And they came together, for the positive outcome, which I don't remember that. I guess I was too young,
Mm-hmm.
But that was pretty cool. So back to cryptids in the news and other oddity. And folks, I know you think we went on a wild tangent, and we do sometimes, but this time we really didn't. So, Bill, we are going to the skies again.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
at Mach 2.5.
But we spend a lot of time talking about UAPs, UFOs. We love shows like Skinwalker Ranch, which, part of the premise of Skinwalker Ranch, other than the Skinwalkers themselves, is that, the idea that there's some type of UFOs that are visiting through a wormhole or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you and I and the audience, we're all fascinated with the potential of these alien piloted craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what does that require?
Well, propulsion.
Well, but before that, who's going to drive the things? I mean, it requires that there has to be some life form on another planet.
You would think so.
It has to be, right?
Or some demon flying inside.
Demon pilot. Could be. Yeah, or a combination of the two. Maybe some of that and some alien. But this week, I don't know if you saw it in the news, but a team of researchers are suggesting that they found the strongest indication yet of extraterrestrial life. It's not in our solar system, which is not a big surprise, but on a massive planet that's known as K2-18b.
Okay, so, where is this in reference to us?
Okay, so it orbits a star that's 120 light years from Earth.
Oh, just around the corner.
No, but now with all of the technology we have, we're analyzing the atmosphere of this planet that's 120 light years away from Earth, and they're finding an abundance of a molecule that on Earth has only one known source: living organisms like marine algae.
Okay, so there's some type of well, of course, you have for life, as we know, you have to have carbon.
Yep.
But so they're picking up something, and the technology is ridiculous. Think about picking up on
crazy,
that.
Bill. They're looking in there. So like this planet itself. Let me see this here. They said it was discovered. You remember they called it the Kepler mission.
Yes.
Where NASA went out in 2015, and they were looking for planets that were outside of our solar system. And after doing that mission, it revealed that planets outside of our solar system are so common that they actually outnumber stars. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is amazing, And, we used to look at the night sky and say, oh, look at all the stars. But as time has gone on and technology, and first the Hubble and then the other telescope that was launched not too long ago,
James Webb,
the Webb telescope, what they're able to see now is that not only are we looking at stars, but we're looking at billions of galaxies. So it's. If you look at the Milky Way galaxy, of which we are a part, and think of billions of galaxies likened to the Milky Way or even greater, it's just a mind-blowing thing to contemplate, No,
but it's wild. So they discovered this, and they said that they were reading this signal for months that indicated this type of life. Mm-hmm. And they kept trying to filter it out. So they say they spent months testing and working the data, just trying to get rid of the signal. Mm-hmm. But it persisted. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time that they've found indicators of life on a planet that lies in what we consider, a habitable zone around a star. In the history of our species, of course, which is not that long compared to, the history of all these planets and that. So they look at this and they call it, it's interesting, Bill. I never heard this term before related to astronomy, but they say that this planet lies in what they call the Goldilocks zone around this star. And they call it Goldilocks because the temperatures are not too hot and not too cold to have liquid water and presumably possible life.
Which is, we are in the Goldilocks zone on Earth.
I mean, we're the only planet that's in the Goldilocks zone.
In our solar system. Yeah. So, well, who knows what, I always tell people the scripture, God's ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts.
Right.
So vast.
Yeah, and this K2-18b, it's got the clever name. It's a little bit smaller than Neptune, our planet Neptune, but much bigger than the Earth. And the star that it orbits is a cool dwarf star, so a star that's later on in its life than our sun. And I think the neatest part, which I have to look for tonight, it's in the constellation of Leo. So look up at the sky on a clear night and look for Leo, and maybe that's where the extraterrestrial life is coming from.
Incredible, man. And what are they using, or what instrumentation, if you know, is being used to come up with that data stream?
They some kind of instrumentation related, I'm sure, to the James Webb Space Telescope.
Okay.
Yeah,
and they're usually looking for using infrared and whatnot. They're looking for light, radiation.
And it's radio signals, I think, that they're bouncing off of stuff. And then it's actually creating the amazing imagery, with, of course, some amazing software programming. Bill, I saw that story in the news this week, and I was just blown away. Like, it's the first time I remember seeing it. It was in the New York Times, on BBC, and all of the major news outlets. They each had a little bit of a different take on it, but talking to the same researchers.
Amazing, man. Just really amazing.
Super cool.
I saw a special that was done a while back on the Webb telescope and its manufacturing and how many people were involved in it.
Yeah.
I mean, what an incredible undertaking, and the details, and just... They said when the Hubble was launched, let's just say there was like 30 things that had to go right sequentially for it to be a success.
Right.
Otherwise, it was space junk. With the Webb, there was like 300 things that had to go right, or it was going to be space junk.
Crazy.
And they all went right.
Yeah, just amazing.
So kudos to these guys. Wow, man. So are you back on track now?
I'm back on track.
Good. What the folks don't know is we had a little flubbox, and they don't know about it, but we got through it.
Yeah, we're challenged by technology, folks, all the time. What my brother and I do each time we do the podcast, it's different than a lot of other podcasters. We're not completely unique, but we're not sitting in the same room when we record. We're not in the same state. We're about 600 miles apart. And we talk to each other real time, like we're recording real time across Skype, the Microsoft Skype application. But then we're each recording independent tracks on each of our computers, and then we sync them up afterwards to make the podcast that you listen to. So, not that you want to know how the sausage is made necessarily, but it's amazing we can pull it off as well as we do sometimes.
And Kev neglected to tell you that each time we podcast, we have to slingshot around the moon.
Exactly. We have to slingshot around the moon before you actually get to receive it. We're not allowed to talk about it, but the James Webb Telescope is somehow involved.
Fantastic, babe. Fantastic. All right, so I got something really cool here tonight. Bigfoot encounter. Stay with me on it. A little wordy. This is one of them detailed accounts, and I always appreciate them. I like somebody who's articulate and brings you into the setting. And this is certainly one of them. Now, this account, Kev, I think we did this like maybe several years ago.
Okay.
But I love it because of the guys, and the way this encounter went off is just incredible. Dave Sorensen and Mike Ruddick were heading off to Jasper National Park in the summer of 1987, not all that long ago. The two men were both Ironman competitors and had traveled to the park from the Pittsburgh area. Since they were competitive swimmers, runners, and bikers, their friendship evolved into taking hiking trips together annually. This was one of those trips. Dave and Mike were both present for my interview, and so from here on out, it will be the two of them telling their story. Mike and I like to pick unusual rural places for our annual hikes. We're not necessarily looking for the greatest physical challenge, but we don't shy away from that either. For this trip, we picked the largest national park in the Canadian Rockies. And no matter how you slice it, this place is wild country. Within its borders, the park has some of the most beautiful rivers and snow-capped mountains that you will ever set eyes upon, as well as the most gorgeous lakes that you will ever see, surrounded by alpine meadow areas which I thought only existed in Switzerland. Additionally, the park is home to an abundance of wildlife, including bears, moose, and elk. One of the things that attracted us to the area was that you can actually stay in the town of Jasper. From Jasper, you could drive into many access areas of the park, with there being over 600 miles of trails within its boundaries. And I was told that most of these trails had started off as game trails. For our trip, we flew into Calgary International Airport, rented a car, with the transition being sweet and easy. There are a number of lodging accommodations located within the vicinity of the park, as well as horse outfitters and guide services for those interested in such things. It's quite a nice, well-thought-out operation, but that does not diminish the wildness of the country. Once you get deep into the park, the human footprint is scarcely present. On our first day in town, we wasted no time. We had seen a tram going up a mountainside and decided to check it out. This Jasper Tramway, as it's called, takes you up the side of Whistler Mountain, up to an elevation of about 7,500 feet. It's about a 10-minute ride, which is incredible to say the least, and at the top, there are boardwalks and trails to walk on and have a look around. Our tour guide told us that we were seeing 6 other mountain ranges, as well as the Athabasca River and some glacial lakes. It was an out-of-the-world experience, and I highly recommend it. So, on our first day's hike, we selected the Great Divide Trail. It was categorized as hard, which is fine for us. That day, there were some low-level, wispy clouds which were floating over the valley with snow-covered mountain peaks visible in every direction that you turned. It would be very difficult to get lost in here because the mountains are always in view and alongside of you, serving as a landmark. The lake itself is about 14 or 15 miles long, and there are trails that follow its entire length on both sides. We decided to begin on a trail that hugged the side of the lake before meandering out into a heavily forested area. We were going to head southeast from our starting point and then to stop and eat before turning around and making our way back. As I said earlier, this is wild country, so the trail was little more than animal footpaths, and at times the terrain can be very rough and rocky, making this hike extremely arduous. We like to familiarize ourselves with the terrain before we hike, which is exactly why many novice hikers get in trouble. They, by not surveying the trail first, end up biting off more than they can chew when it comes to selecting a day's hike. Good advice there, and I've heard that from my survival buddy out in Washington. On our first day, the hike lasted about 6 or 7 hours, and believe me, it was quite a workout to complete. After spending a relaxing night in town, conversing with some of the locals and chowing down, we made our plans for the next day. We decided to begin in the same area, but this time we would take a slightly more westerly approach. It looked like deeply timbered and rocky terrain lay in that direction, which would push our limits physically. We set out early the next day, making sure to carry 2 compasses like we always do. It gave us a backup in case something happened. We also tried to keep track of landmarks in the surroundings as we hike. It can be extremely difficult in the heavily forested areas, which is how people get lost in the woods. So on this particular day, we were passing through large stands of spruce and fir trees, and it was relatively easy to keep our bearings as we moved along. We were about 2 hours into the hike when we entered yet another stand of trees. This stand was fairly dense since all the trees grew relatively close together. You couldn't see clearly for any great distance, but at times there were clear lanes for a couple of 100 feet. And as we were approaching one such area, I waved to my partner, asking him to stop and be quiet. I had seen something large and reddish-brown moving amidst the trees, and my first thought was that it had to be a grizzly bear. As we stood there, I pulled my field glasses up to my eyes, moving slowly so as not to provoke whatever it was. And it wasn't a grizzly bear at all. The beast that I was seeing stood, straddling a large felled tree. Bears don't do that. And just as I was coming to grips with the reality of what I was seeing, Mike shouted, "Go, bear, go!" What a mistake that was. Of course, he didn't see what I was looking at through the binoculars. And in one fluid movement, this beast that had been straddling the log jumped up and turned towards us. It took about 2 or 3 quick steps. Flexing its body, it now lifted its head into the air like a wolf and unleashed an earth-shattering scream. For a moment, it paused and stood looking directly at us, grunting. And after several long seconds, it reached down, grabbed a piece of tree limb, and hurled it towards us, which was followed by yet another blood-curdling howl. The sound was so powerful it sent reverberations through my entire body. I thought to myself in the moment, that surely the entire park must have heard this. At that moment in time, I realized the futility of carrying bear spray. There was no way that I would want this thing to get close enough to me for a spray to be effective, if it could be effective at all. If I had a gun, I would have already been shooting at it. This thing was neither a man nor a bear. It was a monster. I could see Mike's hand shaking. I wasn't the only one terrified of the beast in front of us. The monster was over 10 feet tall, and I might even go so far as to say it was almost 14 feet tall. We have been close to bull elk, and in Yellowstone, we were not far from large grazing buffalo. But this thing must have easily been larger than those. That's saying something. It started rolling its head around like a weightlifter trying to get loose while swiping its arms back and forth in the air. And every few seconds, it would let out what sounded like a grunt or a growl. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, it took about 3 or 4 more rapid steps towards us before stopping to snarl at us, which to me, thinking back, was an intimidation move. It wanted to show us that it was the boss. Now, my own chest is a 52. I wear a 2 or a 3X in everything I buy. This monster's chest must have been a 200X. It looked like a living bulldozer with gigantic hands, arms, and legs. And the speed with which it was able to move during the short burst told me that if it was going to really charge us, it would have been on top of us and quick. At that moment, suddenly in the distance, we heard another howling noise, which seemed to get this creature's attention. It also was prolonged and loud. After this distant howl faded, the beast turned its attention back to us. It actually grimaced, showing us its teeth, before slowly turning and now walking away. As it did so, it craned its neck backwards, looking at us several times before disappearing into the trees. And that's it, Kev. I thought there was another ending. I was going to go on, but that was the end of the story.
Oh, man, that is an awesome story.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought there was like another little paragraph, and I would have read it a little differently at the end had I not realized that it ended right there.
We will forgive you.
Yeah. But an incredible encounter.
Yeah, and that is a hotbed up there by Whistler Blackcomb in Jasper National Park in Alberta, British Columbia.
Well, I told you one of my first accounts that was shared with me came out of Alberta.
Yeah.
And that was from the Moose Guide.
Yeah. Wild.
And, there's stuff up there, the likes of which we don't know.
And just a gigantic creature, too, right?
Oh, I mean, come on. First he says 10 feet, and then he says, I might go so far as to say 14 feet.
And that was in a long cut, size 200 sport coat.
My God.
I'm just guessing on the long cut side.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
just
saying.
Maybe
Maybe a size 200 is the right length. I don't know.
Well, I remember in my pheasant hunter encounter, that guy described the dimensions of what he saw jump up out of the bramble patch running through the thorns as 2 50-gallon drums welded together.
Yeah.
Think of that as the girth or width of a body.
Of the chest, basically.
The chest. 2 50-gallon drums side by side.
I could see that in descriptions like this.
Yeah, just a big mother jumper. And listen to this guy. He said if I had a gun, I would have been shooting it or trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine just being so frightened out of your wits that you really are thinking, I can't wait to die by this thing. I have to defend myself.
Oh, yeah. Can't just sit by.
Right. And Phil always says to me to carry a 357 Magnum because they got the real punch.
Yeah.
But the Magnum shells, really do some damage going in and coming out,
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I still remember when I was living out there in eastern Washington, and, once in a while back then, I've told the story, but they would find, a dead hiker on the trail that was killed by a grizzly, and they had like a 9mm pistol, like a Glock, with a 15-shot magazine that was empty.
Yeah.
And yet the person was dead and the bear was gone. So
yeah, well, I think I shared with you Our buddy Rich out in Washington told me about a bear that's taxidermed. He thinks it's up at one of the airports in Alaska now. This bear is a grizzly. It's like 12 or 14 feet tall on its hind legs. And the story behind the takedown of this animal was by a hunter who was in some tight trees, which actually saved his ass. This thing, he smelled the stench, and as he smells the stench, this bear stands up in front of him. Ooh. Now, the trees provided like a jail cell for him because this thing turned to come at him immediately. And he had a rifle and was able to kill it with a couple of shots. But when the bear was taxidermed, amongst many other bullets that were found in it, there were 6 slugs from a .38 revolver. So whoever
like mosquito bites.
Yeah, whoever emptied that revolver is not with us anymore.
Did not make
for
it.
Sure. But the idea that this giant bear had survived many hits from lead.
Oh, yeah.
And who knows who of all got killed by this thing shooting at it. But I'd say the guy that emptied the revolver never made it.
Yeah.
But that is incredible, man. So who knows what a Bigfoot can take as far as, if it was being shot at,
Yeah.
Well, I remember getting back to the pheasant hunters. He took 2 shots at it at close range with birdshot, and it didn't even flinch.
No, that's crazy.
I mean, like nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's birdshot, but come on, man. If you're hitting something with birdshot at 20 yards or something like that, it's going to hurt, man.
If you hit me, it would get my attention.
Yeah, you better believe it. And this thing didn't even flinch. It just ran, and it was running through thorns and bramble at the time.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Well, what do we have, Kevin? Our listener mail.
Yeah, we got some good listener mail tonight, Bill. The first one comes in from one of our longtime listeners, David from Edinburgh.
Ah.
And he says, thanks, guys. Is the subject. He says, hi, KJ and WJ. I hope that you're both doing great and that Mother Nature is spreading sunnier days on you. I'm still always avidly awaiting the next episode, as usual. Lately, my health and well-being has taken several knocks in the wrong direction. So my apologies for not being in contact. I've really struggled to feel like and be my usual old self, so I've immersed myself in listening to the back catalog again. I'm also listening my way through my shiny new Regional Encounters audio edition. Thanks for the redo, Bill. I haven't really been doing much of my couch research lately because my heart just isn't in it right now. I'm still enjoying the podcasts and audiobooks, though, and you guys are seriously helping me to keep my head above water. I can't thank you both enough for the distraction from the problems that you are providing. I think he means we're providing the distraction, not the problems.
Right.
Just to be clear. I'd really love to be a fly on the wall when you two are together. No doubt there are many more chuckles available. That there are. And he says, I can't wait for you two to send out more Sheehan shenanigans this weekend again.
Sheehan shenanigans.
There you go. Please keep up your awesome and much appreciated work. Kind regards, David, a.k.a. Ox the Sasquatch from Edinburgh, Scotland. So, David, first off, I am so sorry that you're not feeling that well, so hang in there. We are pulling for you and praying for you, too. And I am so happy. There's nothing that makes me happier to hear that our podcast, our silly little podcast, can help some of you get through tougher times. So,
yeah, Kev, a piece of mail like that just does my heart good.
Me too.
It's just the guy's just pouring himself out into us, and it's nice to know that in the midst of all of our shenanigans and stuff, we're actually being of help to
Yeah,
somebody.
we're entertaining somebody and distracting them from perhaps, some bigger problems that they're facing.
Yeah. Sometimes we got to get away from taking life so seriously,
Yeah.
And
Even when it seems very serious.
That's right. Well, she and shenanigans will do that to you.
All right.
Oh,
Now,
awesome,
our
man.
next email also comes from a longtime listener, Lee, in Minnesota.
Ah, yes.
And she's giving me a tip for cryptids in the news and other oddities, which I greatly appreciate, Lee. She says, Kevin, did you hear about all of the hubbub about vast structures indicated to be under the pyramids of Giza? This might be a cool topic for in the news. P.S. Hi, Bill.
Have you heard about vast structures?
I have not.
I have not either.
All right. Well, I'm on it, Lee.
Okay, we'll check into it. See what we get into.
Yeah. So,
But it's a weird area over there. They don't allow certain things. They don't let on certain things. They want to save everything for themselves to keep the interest in the area peaked.
oh yeah,
Going forward for tourism.
tourism's huge over there.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and they want to keep the mystery alive like forever.
Yep.
So I kind of understand that, but it's also a little bit disheartening in a way, because they spoke of a chamber below the Sphinx for decades. We still don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, they got to protect it, though, at the same time.
Yeah, no, I got it,
Cool. Well, I am going to stop there, Bill, this week because of these technical difficulties. Before they come back again, let's get this one closed up and out on the interweb.
Okay, and folks, please, if you buy a book or if you're just listening to the podcast, leave us 5 stars. Don't leave it up to somebody else to do. And your ratings vastly help us in many different ways. And remember, if you should find yourself hiking in Jasper National Park, walking through the woods of Minnesota, Alaska, Washington, you best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.